companies today require more bandwidth to their WANs as they transition to the cloud and increase use of SaaS. As you can see in this graph, as remote access and hybrid expand, the importance of bandwidth allocation flexibility has been increased significantly. To give an example for explaining in more detail, during the height of the coronavirus, many of the company's employees had to work from home. At that time, the bandwidth of global MPLS lines between branch of company and the data center was reduced by more than 60%. A huge waste was occurred. On the contrary, the stability of a home workers' data center access was very unstable, and performance assurance was needed to maintain employee productivity. But there was no immediate solution to this. Therefore, companies want the flexibility of bandwidth allocation that can immediately adapt to even such rapid changes in the work environment. As many as 94% of IT-related respondents said that the flexibility in bandwidth allocation is very important. According to this, most companies are migrating from MPLS to SD-WAN in order to simultaneously solve bandwidth expansion, flexibility, and cost issues. And this trend is expected to continue in the future. SD-WAN design model can be divided into three main categories. There is a do-it-yourself SD-WAN model, in which the company directly purchases the equipment and operates it by themselves, and the managed SD-WAN model of the OPEX model, which carries or MSP provide the full set. And there are hybrid or cloud SD-WAN models that encourage the advantages of DIY and managed models and eliminate disadvantages. Among the vendors in cloud SD-WAN model, there is a SASE that can control over network and security. Today, why must companies which have built SD-WAN feel uncomfortable about SD-WAN? And let's organize on why they are not willing to adopt SD-WAN, even though they know its necessity. And also let's take a time to discuss why hybrid or cloud SD-WAN is preferred. Recent market research on SD-WAN shows that customers prefer managed SD-WAN than DIY. This is Ariaka's SOTW survey result, and this is the survey materials of Frost and Sullivan. Is they really similar? In fact, due to the complexity of SD-WAN, most companies are demanding managed SD-WAN. And in fact, even if you look at the market share in 2017, when SD-WAN started to be recognized as one category in the market, it should be confirmed that they preferred managed SD-WAN. However, if you understand this analysis material properly, you need to take one step further about managed SD-WAN that this research institute talk. It means that the providers of managed SD-WAN are not clearly categorized. Is it really right for a company to prefer managed SD-WAN, which is entirely interested in others with works rather than DIY, without considering the size and security of its own IT infrastructure? If you look at the following statistical graph, you can see that the revenue of managed SD-WAN are divided into carrier service and MSP service. We need to figure out what this suggests. Since SD-WAN technology was born in 2008, it started to launch the market in 2012, and although it started full-fledged growth only in 2017, you can see that the proportion of DIY did not increase until 2020. As expressed in graph, really very few companies bought and operated the equipment directly. The advantages of SD-WAN are clear, but SD-WAN is an obvious overlay technology. Accordingly, it is because the underlay should be managed separately. Control the benefit of SD-WAN. It is required a lot of professional manpower for very complex operation and management. It means that not only professional engineer for SD-WAN equipment or software overlay, but also a professional engineer who can manage underlay a transmission circuit such as MPLS, VPLS, and Internet is needed. In SD-WAN, it can be known that the cost of operating personnel is a very important factor, not the investment in equipment. So if a company is not equipped with decent organization and manpower, we can see that SD-WAN is an incredibly difficult to operate. After all, you can see that customers who prefer DIY are also using the DIY SD-WAN model in the form of maintenance by delegating authority and responsibility through a managed service company with many engineers and help desk. As you are well aware, in the case of large companies in Korea, most of them receive SD-WAN service by delegating authority and responsibility through affiliate or subsidiaries that provide managed service. Large companies have strong on-premises IT capability and are more interested in data security. So even if they cannot operate it by themselves, it may be a good option to operate it through a managed service company that can be delegated operation management and secure even the least amount of reliability. Therefore, in my personal opinion, it is right to think of the MSP area as a way to have a DIY SD-WAN in it, rather than as a managed SD-WAN area. In other words, if you look at this graph, was to start from 2018, when carriers entered the SD-WAN market in earnest. The reason for the rapid increase of carrier services is simple. As the use of cloud and SaaS was rapidly increasing, traffic in the WAN section has started to increase rapidly when a company backhauled the security gates through the existing MPLS for security and performance management of cloud access. The traffic increase became even greater. This is because carriers have started to provide the secured bandwidth as a bundle through SD-WAN to protect their own MPLS business from customers who couldn't be in tolerate expensive MPLS bandwidth expansion. This strategy is a great option for companies that were focusing on their core business rather than large companies that security issues are important. For this reason, a true managed SD-WAN service has grown under the leadership of carriers. The carrier strategy to sell SD-WAN in bundle was considerably effective in protecting their MPLS business. If we look at the sales graph for WAN in 2020, you can see that the MPLS sales are still maintained, while SD-WAN only accounts for 2.15%. As a result, carriers succeeded in protecting legacy MPLS revenues through SD-WAN bundled service. That I want to say is that DIY is no less preferred model to managed SD-WAN. If you view DIY and MSP as an expanded DIY model that does not lose control over the security required by companies, it is also correct that the growth rate of managed SD-WAN is high, and although SD-WAN is still sufficient for the global companies, but it will not be changed. The tendency to prefer DIY more depth can be directly controlled network and security by themselves. Which SD-WAN model does companies want to enjoy the best benefit of SD-WAN? As explained just now, it is advantageous for large companies to use SD-WAN via DIY or MSP because security is important, and is it advantageous for medium or small-sized companies to use managed SD-WAN via carrier to focus on business rather than security? It will be never happened. In some ways, what the ridiculous guide came out is not the issue of SD-WAN technology itself, but the trouble caused by the high level of difficulty of learning underlay and overlay at the same time, and the reason that there are additional security related to design, construction, operation, and complicated and confusing operation of SD-WAN for solving security issue that SD-WAN using Internet must have. After all, SD-WAN technology is not different, but it may be the difference among. Will customers do the difficult part themselves? Will they delegate, or does it leave to carrier? Or what is customers' true need? Perhaps, of course, but my guess is that all operation and maintenance of SD-WAN is done by the trusted vendor or partner, and you want the visibility and only securing control so as to focus on business. Fortunately, the latest SD-WAN is evolving to meet these customer needs. According to the traffic volume trend surveyed by Cisco, in comparison with the increase of traditional WAN traffic, SD-WAN traffic is growing rapidly, increasing by 25% in 2021, or a quarter of the total traffic, and become faster. If we compare it with the previous graph related to SASE, the SASE are only 1/20 of MPLS, but the traffic processed reaches 25% of total. This alone suggests that SD-WAN is quite attractive from a cost standpoint. Then to what direction is the next generation SD-WAN developing? Is it really right way of solution to find what is pros and cons of DIY model that many providers release materials now competitively, and what is way of pros and cons managed SD-WAN? Ironically, that's not the case. Because the existing SD-WAN has clear disadvantages in DIY and managed models, it is developing in the direction to solve them. Recently, the emergence of so-called hybrid SD-WAN and cloud SD-WAN is deemed as an intermediate stage in the development process. The final picture of this next generation SD-WAN is SD-WAN in SASE, announced by Gartner in 2019. Rather than seeing SASE as an advanced technology of new point solutions, it is widely regarded as an innovative model of a new architecture for a combination of existing technologies. Here, SASE will be compared to Cato SASE, which Gartner used as a sample vendor for SASE when it was announced in 2019. The reason is that many vendors have entered the SASE market since 2021, as the SASE market is overheated, but vendors that support SASE cloud are very limited, so it cannot be compared with less competitive SASE. The DIY method is preferred model for companies that have abundant IT infrastructure and are more interested in data security. This is because it is suitable when implementing directly from the design stage to implementation and directly align with the existing infrastructure. However, due to these characteristics, conversely, the disadvantages are shown largely. This means you have to do everything by yourself. First, DIY SD-WAN has to hold abundant professional organization because it is not only to manage SD-WAN equipment or software overlay, but the very complex technology that underlay, such as MPLS, VPLS, and the Internet should be directly designed and implemented. If such an organization does not exist, considerable time and effort is often wasted in dealing with the problems that may arise in various Internet environments occurring in each country and region due to limited experience. On the other hand, Cato SASE has already constructed and underlaid through its own global backbone and designed and built a platform that consists of an overlay through software-defined network technology on top of it. That is, we have already established a stable SD-WAN infrastructure and are providing customers with a stable SD-WAN service through our own NOC and SOC development engineers and professional engineers. Therefore, customers can use SD-WAN service only by connecting with more than 70 Cato POP deployed globally without any operational burden per complex underlay and overlay. Second, DIY SD-WAN has a risk of failure, possibly which is very difficult to select and invest into SD-WAN devices and software that can support the enterprise's business goal. When investing, even if the right SD-WAN is selected, it may become a solution that fails to adapt to changing need as time goes on. In fact, after SD-WAN came to market in 2015, many SD-WAN vendors have been iterating mergers and acquisition with other companies. On each occasion, the IT staff of company experienced very confused, and it created a high cost of hiring IT staff with specific skills. On the other hand, Cato SASE upgrades SD-WAN functions and infrastructures that customers want through continuous development. We receive frequent requests from thousands of customers, tens of thousands of sites, and hundreds of thousands of remote users who use Cato SASE. And through their technical support requests, we can continuously upgrade according according to its importance and priority. This has very important advantages as a customer-centric roadmap, not a vendor-centric roadmap. The point is that the vendors are not alone in development. Third, the DIY method requires the customer to design, deploy, change, and manage issues all by himself. This shows DIY quite rigid appearance when building or changing a site. Agility is significantly reduced as it requires customs procedures, including possibly difficult of cross-border tariffs on equipment, and the site visit works by highly specialized engineers. What's more, the very slow agility was further diminished by the lack of semiconductors and the pandemic. SASE provides rapid agility through nodes of conducting software-defined network in the world that has already deployed and stabilized. Connection to site is made through IP-sectional configuration way. Unique NAT IP address permits a way to specific customer and the zero-touch provisioning box called Cater socket. Here, the Cater socket, which may only require delivery depending on the selection of the connection method, is a box that is leased as part of a service and is delivered quickly through DHL, etc., without any tax issues. A new site can be deployed within a few minutes and or few days, and the change work is also automatically connected to the nearest Cater pub, and the service starts by simply connecting the Cater socket you have with the WAN of the moving location. At first, the customers may feel insecure about such an easy task, but after experiencing it once, they are very free to do so. This screen is a topology seen from the Cater management UI of the company with 83 sites and 20,000 remote users globally. The company has completely converted the existing global MPLS and VPN infrastructure into Cater SASE in 4 months. Those who have deployed it will be amazed on how fast this time is. In fact, it would normally take years to build with MPLS in this size company. Finally, the DIY SD-WAN model requires its own 24/7 global help desk operation. Because SD-WAN's primary purpose is to connect global rather than local, it requires 24/7 global help desk and technical support. While this DIY model gives businesses control of the network, it requires specialized engineers with high technical knowledge and engineering team to work in the field and 24/7 help desk and support organization. As we mentioned earlier in Forest Total Economic Impact, in the 6th episode version, this creates prohibitive cost compared to the cost of investing in SD-WAN equipment. Accordingly, even a larger scale company usually considers whether to directly or resource it. Some of you who are watching this video are probably already experiencing how big this cost is. Cater SASE supports this issue through 24/7 NOCs and SOCs that globally support. What is different from carrier or MSP is that they have a systematic form to quick troubleshooting and to smoothly support through expertise along with the supporting point by development engineers of the systems. They developed and built themselves and professional engineers who deploy and operate Cater Cloud. This may be a very important advantage from the viewpoint that it can be fundamentally different from operation, management, and technology support to the third-party SD-WAN equipment or software. So far, we have explained the architecture innovation that enables Cater SASE to completely address the disadvantages of DIY SD-WAN. From now on, we will explain how Cater SASE can solve the shortcomings of carriers managed SD-WAN. Carriers managed SD-WAN is preferred model when IT team will try to focus on the core business, being dependent on carrier for everything concerned SD-WAN. There is no need to try to find a professional engineer in a specific field and reduce the uncertainty and labor-intensive element of operation management for SD-WAN. However, managed SD-WAN has serious shortcomings. The first is that data security depends on the carrier, which has a general and common policy, but does not focus on individual customer, so it cannot be customized the high level of security company wants. Due to the nature of SD-WAN, as the necessity and importance of data security in terms of using the internet is growing, it is difficult to choose carriers managed SD-WAN to the business area and the company that want to comply with the strict security regulations. This picture shows the architecture of Lumen or main hire carrier SD-WAN service provider, as such security services that are difficult to provide by themselves are often separated from basic services. On the other hand, SASE performs all operations and technical support for its own platform that provides network and security services, and the visibility and control for network and security gives customers the same control level as DIY SD-WAN, in order that electric conduct is through single management console. This is a very important benefit in that customer does not care about underlay and overlay for SD-WAN and can focus on important strategic tasks to achieve their business goals. Second, the carrier is not the vendor of SD-WAN and provide technical support through a third-party vendor or partner when issuing a customer ticket. To clarify, once a ticket is issued, the case is evaluated by an evaluator and assigned to a person in charge. Underlay will be assigned to a person in charge in carrier, and overlay will be assigned to the SD-WAN provider. It seems to be a very efficient process. But if there is a conflict in the cost analysis between the both, because the mediator between them is not clear, it may bring a very serious delay in solving the problem. What's even more disappointing here is that for carriers, their ticketing service isn't a system focused on specific customers. Customers will receive a general ticket service, and the urgency that customers feel not properly communicated to them. We also had a network performance issue with the line used, so we opened the ticket to a carrier, and it took a week to analyze the cause while going back and forth from department to department, and eventually it took 3 weeks to be solved. And the cause of the issue was unidentified and quietly moved on. Customers using managed SD-WAN must often be very disappointed with this type of operation and technical support. As explained above, SASE can be served by engineers who developed its own platform and engineers who deployed and operate it. With its expertise, naturally we can support customers more accurately and quickly than anyone. Finally, carrier does not change its process for specific customer. Customers must use the service after learning and understanding the process upside down. To put it simply, no matter how urgent a customer is, carrier only follow its own process. It can be very frustrating, but it's a common situation. In addition to providing quick problem resolution, SASE have services and processes arranged to manpower that focused on a special customer. Through this, there is a person in charge who understands the customer's history and the service situations well, and they have a process that can provide more accurate and quick support through their own resources. So far, we have explained the shortcomings of DIY and managed SD-WAN and the architecture and technical support system that SASE perfectly solves. Fortunately, most SD-WAN vendors are moving towards SASE in order to provide network services that customers want. But even here, you have to make good choices. It is necessary to select a platform architecture rather than a portfolio architecture to solve the complexity of operation management and to pay attention movement of SD-WAN vendor who focused on both WAN and Internet rather than cloud SWG vendor who only focused on Internet security. Of course, it is very rare that the company's resources are only in the cloud. It must be SASE with WAN technology because there are still more corporate resources on premise. This is the reason why this video compares and explains the innovative architecture of next generation SD-WAN based on SASE, which is the most complete SASE vendor. As explained above, SASE has a new platform that perfectly supports joint management model, in which the vendor is responsible for the operation management of complex and difficult underlay and overlay, and the customer is directly responsible for securing visibility and controlling the platform. Company can apply rules for their intended network paths, free from the burden of complex SD-WAN technology, and manage optimal application performance. And it can be possible to freely establish and apply security policies through the provided security functions together. In other words, SASE allows a company to be able to rely on each other for expertise together with the vendor, not compromising data privacy. Of course, even in SASE, conflict can arise in area under the control of both parties. However, as it is clearly distinguished on whether there is a problem with the SD-WAN infrastructure or a problem in the policy, it is the optimal model for smooth joint management. The completion of the next generation SD-WAN that company wants today can be called SASE. In our experience, when working with the network team, because the security team was in charge of security, so there were many cases where you only wanted to review in terms of full network service. However, even if the organization duties are clearly separated, it is completely separated from external users. And on the other hand, the connecting network must interwork with the security, in the sense that network access control is ultimately most effective when the converged security functions are managed together within the network. It will recognize that SASE provides company with better architecture innovation. This direction of the next generation SD-WAN is also strong in other vendors. Naturally, it may be the direction that customers want. When examining other vendors, it was found that the direction of the oncoming SD-WAN models is also changing to the same architecture as SASE. And in the portfolio method that combines several point solutions, you will see that it is implemented as one converged platform method. In the case of other vendors, because they have existing technologies and infrastructures, it will take considerable time to abandon them. Going to next generation SD-WAN in the form of platform at once, but the direction to go has a similar architecture to SASE called the world first SASE. When you now want to use SD-WAN, but you can solve the concerns that you cannot judge rashly, don't worry about the many solutions that you are disappointed with the case of saying the service is excellent, but only in North America and Europe. With evenly distributed K-pop across the world, SASE can now replace burdensome MPLS with cheap, comfortable, and stable performance without particular risk.